Hi everyone, this is Dan, and this is Wonder Woman Volume 1 by George Perez. Though it really should be, I guess, George Perez's Wonder Woman. Anyhow, this is a trade paperback by DC Comics. Very nice, by the way, basically the same quality, actually slightly better quality than those new Teen Titans volumes that I showed earlier. One of the big differences with this version is that there's actually a matte coating on the pages, which is pretty nice. Whereas the Teen Titans trade paperbacks have a bit of a sort of rougher texture, almost like a newsprint in a way. It does make the colors of this particular trade paperback pop a little differently than the new Teen Titans. It's slightly brighter, though I think DC Comics does a pretty good job of toning down the saturation so it doesn't pop too much compared to, say, like the Marvel reprints. Anyway, let me give some background right here as sort of explain why I'm even going over this book here. And really, I'll probably just kind of jump through the first issue right here, since that's really what I want to do. There's 14 issues in this trade paperback, so I'm not going to go over every single one. But George Perez, some of you may know, is a very, very famous comic book artist. Most known for his work at DC, though he's done a lot of great work at Marvel too. Obviously, I've covered his stuff on my channel, in particular New Teen Titans, which I think is probably his finest work with his probably best collaborator, Marv Wolfman. That being said, one other great high mark in his career is this Wonder Woman series right here. So, some background. This Wonder Woman series came out, I believe, 1986. Let me get the date of the first issue. Oh, it doesn't have a... Oh, that's interesting. Normally, DC does like a contents page that tells you when it was published. But I'm pretty certain this came out in 1986 as the Wonder Woman reboot. Right, so you had a Wonder Woman 1, number 1. Kind of an interesting thing, and the reason why it was a reboot from the 80s is this occurred directly after 1985's Crisis on Infinite Earths. So I haven't covered Crisis on my channel, but it was a big deal and basically reconfigured the DC universe for the first time, really, and kind of sort of reset everything and kind of really changed. And a lot of people will use the term pre-crisis and post-crisis in the DC universe to describe really differences in storylines, characters, for lack of a better word, canon in the DC universe. And this Wonder Woman reboot by George Perez basically retells her story. Doesn't stray too much from the original concept of Wonder Woman by William Marston Moulton. I think that's his name, right? Is his full name? Yep. Yeah, William Moulton Marston. My bad. Like, I know it's like WMM, and I get the two names mixed up all the time. But anyway, this was kind of George Perez's, and along with Len Wein, right? This was their sort of rebirth of Wonder Woman post-crisis. And it was supposed to only be a short commitment for George Perez. It ended up being like 5 years that he worked on Wonder Woman. Pretty fascinating in of itself, and it definitely is some of his best art. Like, I mean, this cover right here is pretty damn impressive, but honestly, there's so many pages in here that are just mind-bogglingly beautiful, both in backgrounds and just human form. All this stuff that he did right here, which kind of raced through here. Yeah, just all these things. He freaking knew. He drew Wonder Woman like a boss, dude. Yeah, this is freaking George Perez, like peak George Perez, right? Not to say that he didn't do amazing stuff after this. He did, or before this, really, with Titans and Crisis. But yeah, this Wonder Woman run that he had was pretty impressive. Now, interestingly enough, with this Wonder Woman run, is he was technically a writer, though realistically he was actually a co-plotter. I think the scripting was mostly handled by Len Wein, who a lot of you guys should know had a lot of great runs. Obviously, he's Pretty well known for his work both at Marvel and DC. But yeah, no, what is sort of interesting is I think commercially this might be the most successful run that Wonder Woman ever had. And I'm not 100% sure, but I'm pretty certain in terms of just overall popularity, this sort of reboot of Wonder Woman was pretty magical and did a lot of great stuff in terms of reinvigorating the interest in this character. And that gets to kind of my sort of take. Obviously, I don't cover DC that much on my channel. And the reason being is mainly I'm more of a Marvel guy, and honestly to be truthful, more of a manga person. Even though I try to like limit how much I do of manga on my channel, just because I know, I have a lot of people who like comics and also have a lot of people who like the European stuff as well. Wonder Woman of the Trinity, as they like to call it in DC, of Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, she's definitely my least favorite, and has nothing to do with like sexism or any of that other stuff. I just kind of find her origin story to be really, I don't know, kind of lame, honestly. The origin story of her basically being a daughter of the gods, and those gods being the Greek gods, I don't know, it just feels very almost derivative to me. Whereas Batman's origin story is very, very classic. I mean, it's iconic. The whole, it gets repeated a lot, and obviously we've seen Batman's origin story over and over and over and over again. But that's because it's very, very powerful and it's very, very effective. Centuries from now, people will be reading Batman's origin stories and still getting the feels, right? And the same is true of Superman. Superman's origin story is also very powerful, despite the space age sort of influence that it has, right? Whereas Batman's influence is very noir, Superman's influence is very space age kind of drama. Wonder Woman's influence is, at least for me, just coming at it, looking at it, my own interpretation of it, it's like someone who was kind of a Greek mythology nerd, wanted to like mess with that kind of stuff in the DC universe. And to be fair, like Greek mythology and Norse mythology exist in both the DC and Marvel universe. It's kind of interesting that it's kind of their way to, skirt around copyrights and other things, right? And the problem with Wonder Woman is she's kind of like a daughter of the gods. Whereas like, say, Thor from Marvel, he literally is a god. So in terms of like stakes and everything, even though DC, as a company has tried very hard to power level the hell out of Wonder Woman and give her like enormous powers compared to other relative comic book characters, I cannot help but find her to just be, okay, well, if you have Greek gods in this world, why wouldn't you ask those Greek gods to do that stuff, right? It kind of seems weird to have like the daughter of someone, do it. It's basically, it's like Hercules, right? Kind of deal, except in those instances, right, when stories about Heracles or Hercules work, it's because the gods are sort of separated from the story, and it's really more of like a human kind of challenge, right? But yeah, anyway, that's just kind of my 2 cents on it. I think her design's pretty classic. I've always liked that about Wonder Woman. They've all kind of done the Linda Carter look. That is pretty sweet. But I just never really got into her origin story. It never really got into why people really like the character. And I think the sort of sales results have kind of borne that out. She's always been behind, usually by a great margin, behind Batman and Superman, right? And even behind a lot of the Marvel characters too. So, is she necessarily a terrible character? No, absolutely not. But just my own 2 cents, never been really into Wonder Woman. Anyway, I've kind of rambled on long enough right here. The other reason why I wanted to go over this volume, and those of you who've been paying attention to the news, and I don't know what's going to happen, post this video being uploaded, but George Perez is suffering from late-term cancer. So we actually don't know or how long we're going to have George Perez around with us, right? And this is true of a lot of these older comic book creators from this era and the eras before and after, right? Such is life. We all eventually pass on. And I think one of George Perez's great legacies is this Wonder Woman run, which I think is fantastic, frankly. Even though I'm not really into this character, I dig this Wonder Woman run, and I recommend you check out this trade paperback. It is great quality and a great value. Actually, let me check how much they sell this thing. So $24.99, which is actually pretty decent. I think I got this for less. I'm pretty certain I got this for like $20. But who knows? DC, unlike Marvel, tends to do a better job of reprinting their trade paperbacks, whereas Marvel, it is just, it's omnibus or get fucked over at Marvel, which is really annoying. But anyway, let's kind of just run through issue number 1, because issue number 1 is just the origin story, right? So we have kind of like scenes here of like Neanderthals, and man beating and oppressing women, which is kind of part of the origin here. And we jump over to basically Mount Olympus and the gods as they're kind of bickering and doing god things. And Ares, as usual in most of these fictions where the Greek gods are involved, Ares is the bad guy. And the goddesses are kind of coming together with each other to basically grace humanity with a new race. And so all of the goddesses come together to, through their god powers and Hades stuff and whatnot, bring about the creation of a new race of people, and these would be the Amazons. And then move on to, and this is kind of really interesting. This is a really cool story where Heracles, or Hercules, however you want to call it, of the Greek lore, is actually the bad guy. So he actually ends up getting tricked by Ares to go and fight Hippolyta, the queen of the Amazons, right? And he ends up actually getting defeated in battle before tricking her and basically doing a lot of very bad things. So obviously this was Comics Code Authority days, so they couldn't necessarily say exactly what Heracles and his warriors were doing to the Amazons, but the implication is the forced sexual acts against the will of the victim is what I will say, right? And that the Amazons are able to escape with the help of Athena, and then they end up basically creating Paradise Island, coming together, and through some prophecies and the goddesses also coming together once more, many thousands of years later. By the way, Paradise Island also makes the Amazons immortal, so they just live for centuries now on that island. Through the strength of these goddesses and their power and whatnot, they basically create Diana, Wonder Woman, from essentially a pile of mud, which is interesting. But yeah, this is this origin story of Wonder Woman, where she is basically the daughter of all the goddesses of Olympus and also Hermes. It's really weird. Hermes is like in the background right there, like the one dude. Anyhow, then we go through basically the life of Diana as she grows up and is raised by the Amazons to be a warrior, and through a trial, she ends up winning the right to basically serve the goddesses or the gods and travel or basically take on these mantles, right? Very interesting that this gun gets shown up and you basically get Wonder Woman doing the Wonder Woman thing, right? And that's kind of like the origin stories right here before the next issue where Steve Trevor gets introduced and Wonder Woman goes into the human world. And you can read the rest of this in this volume 1, and I think the run goes, God, I don't even know how many issues. It's like 30-something issues, I think, of George Perez on Wonder Woman. I'm not sure how much of it he remains co-plotter with Len Wein, just because I haven't read the whole run. But overall, I was actually very surprised. I'm not a fan of Wonder Woman, but I found a lot of the issues in this volume to be pretty darn good. And honestly, you look at George Perez's art, and it almost justifies the cost of the trade paperback in and of itself. He's really, really, really good. And one of the all-time great American comic book artists for sure. Anyhow, that's the review, guys. Let me know what you think. If you like this video, please hit the thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't subscribed. Hit the bell for notifications. If you got any comments on Wonder Woman issue number 1 or volume number 1 by George Perez, leave it down below, and I will see you next time.